Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Web3 Coffee. This is the first episode where we have a guest star in attendance, and I've brought Vishal Gondal to the show. He was my he is my first mentor, and his entrepreneurial drive and never quit attitude has fundamentally transformed how I approach both my personal and professional life. So I'm super excited to have you on the show, Vishal.
Agastya, finally we wanted to have coffee together, so here we are on Web3 Coffee. It is truly exciting to be here. I think what you are doing at UHT and everything which is happening in the Web3 space, especially after the re-election of Donald Trump, and the whole focus on what is going to be the next 10 years of Web3, healthcare, AI, looking up. I am super excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too. And I've been speaking to you for a long time about some of the trends of big tech, and I think the viewers are going to be super excited for everything we're going to be talking about. So, I thought first I'd start with getting your thoughts on not just the tech startup ecosystem in Asia, which has been growing massively. I think the reports are saying Asian VC funding has gone 20x in the last 10, 15 years. There have been players like Balaji with his network school and Magnus with Antler that have really bet heavily on the Asia ecosystem. But I know you personally have taken a strong inclination towards India and Bombay's tech ecosystem.
No, I think I grew up in Mumbai, created my first company here, and interestingly, if you see the history of a lot of tech startups, whether it is Ola, whether it is companies like Zepto, a lot of them have their origins in Mumbai because Mumbai is the city of dreams. If you see any Bollywood movie or any TV show, the protagonist always comes to Mumbai city to make it big. It's just like what New York is for a lot of people when they think of making it big in America, or what Silicon Valley is. But what happened over the past, let's say, couple of decades is that there are a lot of other places in India where there has been a lot of development, and especially places like Bangalore, where they only had the tech industry with Infosys and Wipro and TCS and other kind of people. So, and there was a lot of availability of cheap labor because that industry at that time, their entire focus was how do we get software engineers in scale, and that kind of gravitated a lot of the tech ecosystem to move to Bangalore and other places. And the other thing was that Mumbai already had a lot of things happening. There is a lot of tech companies, gaming companies, health tech companies. But because we also have the diamond industry, we also have the Bollywood, we also have the banking, we have the insurance, we have the textile. So because there is so much happening there, the somehow the tech industry did not get its share of voice.
Right.
Of course, this is a much more expensive place to live, but this is also the place you can party the best, be safe. Women can, freely travel. So I think the goal was to kind of come together. So us entrepreneurs came together and set up something called Team Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai, with the sole intent of helping Mumbai regain its voice in the tech ecosystem. There are already over 60 unicorns and sunicorns in Mumbai already, and there are many more, but we never were together somehow. The other interesting thing is that AI, which is now the big push globally, is all about not requiring as many people but requiring quality people. And somehow Mumbai has got a lot of interesting AI companies. In fact, Geo itself is doing so much in AI, which is also in Mumbai. So when Jensen wanted to do the AI conference, guess what? It happens in Mumbai. So Mumbai is not only regaining its share in the startup world, but I would say that we are also now becoming a big center of AI globally.
Yeah, definitely. And for For the benefit of the viewers, I'll also add that team, Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai, actually hosted the biggest AI hackathon in the world. Just I think 2 weeks ago, was it?
We got the Guinness Book of Records on that, right? So
Amazing.
that's how things are in India, big scale and impactful.
Fantastic. And I think you were one of the first people that talked to me about this idea that AI is really like the cloud movement we saw earlier. It's going to be baked into the fabric of everything we do.
So that's exact. So AI, blockchain, cloud are things which we are all going to eventually see woven into every product and service we use. Just think about it. Few years back, there was skepticism around why would people use cloud? Is my data secure in my server, locked in my basement versus somewhere in the cloud?
Yeah.
What happens to cyber security data and so on? Today, every major company, government everybody is using the cloud. There is not even a debate on whether the cloud could be used. Of course, there are certain specialization that certain clouds are very good for, let's say, video streaming. There are certain clouds which are very good for low latency video gaming. So there could be specialists around that. Similarly, I do believe that with AI, it will become ubiquitous. Most models will do 90% of the things in the same way, but then they will have the specialization. There'll be certain models good at video,
Right.
certain models will be good at analytics, certain models will be good at let's say news and so on. So I would say that what we are now going to start seeing is a lot of models specializing in certain areas of business. And then because of AI, there is going to be such amount of the number of information or the data bits in the world are going to like 100x, because every person can today create a post, create an image,
Yeah.
which required a graphic designer or a copywriter. So content creation will become so high that one of the big issues will be that every information which you see, is this a valid or a real information? And I see that validation happening on the blockchain.
Right.
So actually all this is now getting connected, because now if you look at a piece of video, you won't even know if this is real or it's not. Or if
Yeah.
you look at any kind of information. And I believe that there will be a big need of third party independent verification of what is this content which you are seeing, or whether
Definitely.
we are even real, or this is our AI models talking to you on video.
For sure. I already, with the kind of problems we see around hallucination in the current models, I think it's clear that we'll need to figure out how to judge veracity of all this data coming out.
Interestingly, we know that there's this very famous captcha, right? Everybody, I am not a robot, is what you have to click and verify.
Yeah.
Now you know what, AI models can do that
Yeah,
on its
I'm
own.
sure,
So
easily.
now with captcha itself being broken, proving that you are human itself is going to be a big task. And guess what? World, which is created by Sam Altman and his team,
Yeah, WorldCoin.
WorldCoin, is actually solving that. And WorldCoin is basically KYCing everybody in the world with a simple thing that proving that you are human. And instead of a captcha, which currently you had to solve some math or read some cryptic characters,
Yeah.
you will soon be using the blockchain to even validate
Yeah.
if you are a human.
Cryptographically verified, which is a great use case, and I think proof of humanity protocols are going to be much more in vogue. But there was a lot you said there, and I want to go deep into this whole idea of domain expertise in AI, the data opportunities there. But before that, I know you have some amazing insights into who the top leaders are in the business world for AI, and some of the learnings you've gotten from them, how they've informed your approach at Goki and Encore Games?
See, AI is a transformational movement in the world. It's the same thing, in the early 1900s, people didn't believe that we could fly. And New York Times wrote a story that people are not going to fly for the next million years. Guess what? 6 to 8 weeks after that story, the Wright brothers did the first manned flight. And since then, we know that aeroplane and air travel is part of millions of people fly and tens of thousands of flights every day. But what air travel actually did is something very interesting. The distance from New York to London in a ship used to take 9 to 10 days, and it was a very long journey, and not many people were doing it. But when commercial aviation actually started, you could do that journey in 6 to 8 hours, maybe 9 hours in the worst case.
Oh.
Now, 9 days versus 9 hours, the incremental was so high that now, only if you're doing some kind of a leisure holiday would you even think of taking a ship from London to New York.
Right.
And you will always choose to travel by plane.
Right.
However, now let's just look at supersonic plane, which said that, now you can fly that same distance in 3 hours. And people said, 6 hours versus 3 hours, it's okay, I can wait for another 3 hours. Which is why supersonic travel was not as popular. So the point I'm trying to make is that if a technology can deliver a very, very high degree of efficiency over the existing technology, that gets massive adoption. So 9 days to 9 hours or 6 hours was great, but 6 hours to 3 hours was not great.
Right.
But guess what is going to be great? Elon Musk has said that with rocket, he's going to transport people anywhere in the world in 45 minutes.
Wow.
So basically, you could be anywhere in the world and they will take you, you go up and then you land. So San Francisco to Shanghai in 45 minutes. Now that will have a lot of takers because that distance of 16 hours, Mumbai to San Francisco flight 18 hours. If I can do that in 45 minutes,
I mean, that's less than my office commute in Bombay.
Exactly, right? So I think what you have to now start thinking and the kind of leaders I meet are two. One are people who are just thinking of AI as another thing. Okay, let's also put AI in everything we do. Or thinking of AI as a feature.
Right.
Versus people thinking of AI as the primary product.
Right.
And I think we have to now start thinking and reimagining ourselves as an AI first business.
Right.
And if you have the AI first mindset, then you are truly utilizing AI. If you're just going to use AI as a feature, then you will be massively lost out.
For sure. And I also love one thing you've told me about the preventive healthcare space and AI. So, with Musk's move into self-driving cars, his goal was to prevent accidents, not to speeden up repair processes or automatically repair after a crash. And I think those types of parallels are really quite interesting.
No, and that's what's going to happen in healthcare, right? Today, healthcare system is a sick care system. We are waiting for people to fall sick, have a heart attack, and then post-attack, we are trying to do surgeries and so on. While that's okay, but now with data, with all kinds of predictive models, you can actually predict that, hey, you're going to get a heart attack in the next 30 days and here are 10 things you can do today to avoid that or proactively do this so that you don't get a heart attack. So the system will no longer be about sick care. It will be preventing sickness in the first place. And that's what the concept of autonomous driving is. The concept is that how do we make the world safer if all the cars are autonomous? Humans are really bad at it. And similarly, in AI and healthcare, the healthcare system currently has so many friction points, which everything can be sorted with AI. So there is going to be a mass adoption of AI tools, and everybody now has some kind of device and wearables now with our glasses. So everything is eventually going to get connected, and this data along with the personalized AI model care is going to certainly lead to longevity. So not only people are going to live longer, but they're all going to be living healthier lives.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned heart attacks and the sick care model because, I was recently reading some work by Peter Attia, who I know you're very familiar with, and he was talking about how currently 80% of all deaths in people above 50 are from chronic diseases. And the only way to prevent these diseases is through the four main aspects of preventive health: exercise, nutrition, sleep, and mental health. And we have to find the right ways to incentivize this. But what I found most interesting is the fact that when we talk about prevention of disease, really what we're talking about is prevention of human suffering. Because the reality is, when someone lives with these chronic diseases and they only have the sick care model, where they're just put on medicine for the rest of their life, it's human suffering. And that's why it's so important to be doing the work in the preventive healthcare space, I think.
No, and that's where the problem of incentivization comes, right? Today, the incentives are misaligned. Pharma companies, hospitals, which are for profit, are all incentivized to, make people spend on their medication and their hospital bills and surgeries. And if the system is incentivized to do that, that is what you get,
Yeah.
versus a system which is incentivized on the other side. Similarly, all the social media apps or all the Netflix of the worlds or all the food delivery apps, they are all trying to make you more lazy. They don't want you to sleep on time.
Yeah.
In fact, some of these quick delivery apps want to deliver things to you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So the world is today incentivized to monetize your laziness, which is leading to
Yeah.
the problem of our current healthcare system. Versus if we are able to create a system which is incentivizing you to forget about waiting for 10 minutes. You walk for 10 minutes and get something.
Yeah.
That gets you a very big incentive versus using a 10-minute food delivery app, right? So how do
Yeah.
we change the incentive structure? That will change the game.
Spot on. And what I've kind of realized over the last few years working in this space is to change the incentive structures really requires a lot of education to the end user. Because right now, I was listening to Laura Shin's podcast, Unchained. It's one of the biggest blockchain podcasts. And in it, she's as far as I understand, a staunch Democrat. And in it, she was actually complimenting RFK Jr. and his approach to healthcare as critical, and she only realized that because the last 10 years she's been suffering from various health conditions, and only when you're actually dealing with it do you see some of the lack of consistency and difficulties in the current paradigm.
No, and but the only difference I have is I don't think so. It's a problem of education. Everybody knows they should not be drinking or smoking or eating junk food. It's not like people don't know. I think it's the lack of motivation which is the larger problem.
Right.
Education, yes, there could be some people who may say, I did not know that drinking is bad for me or consuming drugs is bad for me.
Right.
But the large amount of people know it, but they still do it. And I think the problem goes back to the problem of motivation. The second problem, which also is about, just think about Duolingo. There have been a million learning apps and learning websites and books about language learning, but Duolingo is now the leading language learning app. Millions of people are learning, Spanish, Chinese, English, Hindi, Japanese on Duolingo. Or think of Pokemon Go. It did not teach people anything. It basically just said go and walk and run and catch Pokemons, and that made people run and walk and collaborate and
Right.
make new friends. So it was the gamification which made the boring process fun and interesting and motivating for people, which got you the outcome.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. So I want to go back to kind of your discussion around domain specific AI is becoming crucial and figuring out the right data inputs for that AI to be successful. I don't know if you saw, but there was a person the media has called the French whale who bet 24 million on Trump winning the election on Polymarket. And he released a statement after he won. He made about 20 million in a span of 7 days. And he said that he commissioned his own poll in America with two questions. One, who are you voting for? Two, who are your neighbors voting for? And in that poll, he found a huge gap with most people saying their neighbors are voting Trump, but not saying that they are. And that's what led him to make the bet. And why I'm bringing this up is that we've seen for decades proprietary data playing a key role in making money in financial markets. Now, with the advent of AI, we're really seeing how data is becoming the new oil, and you can use that to create better AIs. Do you have any thoughts on how healthcare can benefit from newer proprietary data sets, especially end user
So I
data
think the
sets?
current problem with AI is not the AI itself, but it's the bias or the weights which we are going to add to the AI. So an AI system incentivized for maximizing profit for an insurance company may behave very differently and want to deny claims and may want to only focus on that versus an AI which is basically saying that what is in the best interest of the patient, which may not be in the best interest of profitability, for example.
Right.
So there is going to be a lot of questions on how AI are going to be trained and how the various company decisions are going to be made using AI. For example, today, if a loan is being denied, you will have to tell the model what the biases or what the non-biases are. Is it purely based on your credit history, or there are other aspects which come to play? So I think we have an opportunity and a challenge at the same time, because an AI model let loose could also do a lot of damage to the world. But at the same time, with the right guardrails, which is why it's important now for regulators and everybody else to come in. And it's for possibly the first time where the regulators are actually ahead in certain places of even the AI companies. Normally, regulation, like what happened with social media, nobody knew. By the time anybody could come and do anything, the whole thing is already out and millions of people are already affected.
Right.
Versus AI, where I think there is a great opportunity for human society to form some kind of framework, at least, which we can all agree on.
Yeah. And there's definitely some strong movement in that area. I guess we're benefiting from some existing, people with strong tech policy credentials now that we've seen some of the worst effects of social media. I did want to ask if you had any thoughts on the debate going on right now with open source versus closed source AI models, and especially in healthcare. What do you think the best products are going to use, as well as if you can comment on this other approach, which is more the decentralized open source model?
So first of all, the interesting thing about healthcare is I believe most of the innovation in healthcare will be in preventive care using AI, because it is, let me use the word, non-lethal. Telling you to drink water or having extra hour of sleep may not impact you as much, versus an AI by mistake, giving you an extra dose of some drug, which could have some massive side effect. So I would say that because of the potential hallucinations and other things on the sick care side, where you are dealing with critical patients, there needs to be a lot of work done on AI, and especially from safety.
Yeah.
But on preventive care and predictive and that areas are still more safer, because the AI may be a little wrong and say maybe it's it is not as lethal. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Now talking about open and closed source. So Meta, for example, with Llama has taken the open source approach, and it was interesting to see that OpenAI name is open. They were open and then they went back and became private and closed. And they are saying closed is better for safety, and OpenAI is saying open is better for safety. The answer really lies somewhere in the middle. And if you just think about it from the operating system world, right? Android and iOS tightly controlled by Apple. Android the world, except Apple, most of the world uses Android. And while Android does have vulnerabilities, but there are equal number of people who are working on the patches. So AI open systems have vulnerabilities, but then they have 100x people working on solving those vulnerabilities, versus a closed system will have vulnerabilities, but again worked by a small set of people. So there are pros and cons of both models. But in a country like India, or anybody who wants to start from scratch, at least open source model gives you a good base to start building on top of.
Right.
So that's an interesting approach, versus you relying on somebody else's model and somebody else's data all the time.
I mean, you can always turn off the switch at any time, right?
Exactly.
So before we dive a little deeper into, specific healthcare topics, I just wanted to hear from you, what are the major trends you see in healthcare in the next 10 years? What do you think are some of the things the end user has to look forward to?
So 10 years is actually too long. I'll say this is going to be even shorter. So healthcare is rapidly moving from hospital to remote. Unless there is a procedure or something which is invasive, which requires you to be physically somewhere, there is no need to go to a hospital or a clinic.
Right.
So more and more procedures will be remote.
Right.
Second thing, data will become more democratized, and every consumer, whether it is through wearables or different devices or apps, will have their own data. And post COVID, especially, everybody has got some report in a PDF form with them, which was previously in some file somewhere. So people have access to health data. Similarly, a lot of this data will lead to personalized care, because you will then ask a doctor or a clinician that, hey, based on my data, because my vitamin D levels are lower, what should I be doing? What should I be eating? So data will lead to personalization, just like how Amazon is able to personalize every store. When you open Amazon.com, you have a different website and I have a different website based on my shopping history. But my doctor is not doing that for me, or my coach is not doing that for me. So healthcare will become personalized for sure. And that leads to models of risk being changed. So you will now be seeing even insurance models which are going to become more dynamic, which will reward you, incentivize you for good health.
Right.
And finally, I do see blockchain playing a big role in this, because with consumers having data, validating the data becomes important. And then how do you validate the data? Because third party will be wanting to also look at that data at some point of time. Or if you want to contribute your data for a clinical study, you could use a blockchain and do that and also get compensated for it. Or if your data is used by an AI model,
Yeah, exactly.
how do you get compensated for it? Today, your data has already been used by an AI model, which effectively will make billions for its creators, but you don't get a single share of it. But I believe that with that same data being on the blockchain, there will be a way to compensate every person who's contributed for that data.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and everything's kind of just getting interrelated.
And finally, you will be living longer. I mean, I think there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that because of all the advancement in AI, personalized care, you will be living a longer life. However, I don't know if you will be working, because most of the work will be done by AI and bots. There are going to be a billion bots, more robots expected to be in the workforce. So the big problem I actually foresee is a problem of mental health, because I think people will lose the purpose. Today, whether you like it or no, for the purpose for humanity has become that if you're a kid, study, go to college, go to university, join a company, work and get promoted till you retire. So there has been a purpose made in society for all of us.
Yeah.
But if suddenly there is no work and education also will become very different, what is your purpose? So that is going to be a big challenge for humanity.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, the hope is that there's more quality work available, but obviously there'll be challenges around that. There's something else interesting you've brought up a few times with me in the past, and that is that right now AI is focused on large language models. but the future is really this concept of world models. Do you think you can elaborate on that a little bit?
No, see, language models just digitized textual, graphical, pixel information and created a model out of it. But we as humans don't, the language was only invented much later. We learn by walking on the road, touching a stone, putting our hand in water, touching something which is soft, which is hard, something which is having thorns in it. So our human has different senses which gives us the experience of the world. We are sitting on a chair. Is it a firm chair? Is it a soft chair? Now in the next set of models, the model is no longer just about text. It's actually trying to explain you that what is the texture of this glass, what is the material of this glass, and how a human is supposed to react with this. And that's, just look at a small kid. Initially a small kid may not even understand something is hot and they may put their finger on a hot water, but after a few times they will realize that I should not be touching something which is hot. Similarly, these models are now going to start learning the world, and they are digitizing data, which is video, which is sensory data, XYZ data. Llama just announced Feel, which is what they called a model which can understand 16 types of textures.
Wow.
On any kind of surface, whether it is hard, soft.
That's
Already that
incredible.
has been done. So with all of this happening, the robots will be learning these skills. So the world models are going to translate into skills, which will get into robotics in a big way. So what we have seen with language models is just the tip of the iceberg.
Clearly. And it's just, as often happens with these things, I remember it happening with the cloud. It's just rapidly progressing. It takes, hours a day to stay on top of it, if that. Which brings me to a pretty interesting thing I read about a couple of weeks ago. So Mark Andreessen, one of the top venture capitalists, had given a 50K grant apparently to this AI robot on Twitter. And although the wallet address is controlled by the creator of the robot, this bot has been able to pump up a meme coin to about a value of $1 billion market cap. So I think this is the first time we've seen an AI agent kind of go mainstream in some ways. I'm excited to see what AI agents can enable for an average person with regard to their healthcare. I know off the top of my head, if I had an AI agent handling my insurance for me, my claims, etc., that would save, minimum of hundreds of hours a year. But
So all I can tell you, Agastya, on the closing note, that we are in a very interesting point in the world's history. We now have Donald Trump as president, and his chief advisor is Elon Musk, the man whose mission is go to Mars, who has launched autonomous driving, who is already launching robots, who understands AI. He was one of the co-founders of OpenAI, who understands tech completely. He's owner of X, but at the same time, there are some challenges too, but let's leave that aside. So I'm actually very, very hopeful, because normally what happens is that there is always a clash between government and technology and innovation. But this is for the first time we are going to see that, and luckily in India that's happened, right? Our Prime Minister Modi is very pro tech.
Right.
The government is pushing tech. The frameworks here are promoting innovation. Nothing is blocking innovation. And I think US had gone to a place where it almost looked like they were trying to throttle innovation. But I think now with the with Trump around, and with Elon Musk there, and with all these people, Robert Kennedy, I see a lot of hope with whether it is preventive care, whether it is blockchain, whether it is AI. There is going to be a lot of action and a lot of hope.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, Vishal, and for being the first guest on Web3 Coffee.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here, Agastya. All the best.
Hopefully we see you back here soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.